Just to be clear, this video isn't about bullying or attacking anyone. It is about holding people accountable and encouraging honest conversation. The goal is to educate and not to tear down.
But you do concede that there is no some plan targeted specifically at white farmers.
There's not a wholesale murder of people as in what you had in Rwanda.
And speaking of lies, that's where it comes to this whole narrative of white genocide. It's not something AfriForum has ever done. We don't call it a white genocide. You can go listen to our interviews, read our documents, scour our website for the fine tooth comb. It's not what we do. We say farm murders is a serious issue. It's an issue that needs, I think, and AfriForum thinks, a particular strategy, a unique strategy to tackle, but we don't call it a genocide. Adams Roots, in his book, Kill the Boer, dedicates an entire chapter to describing, in 2018, 6 years ago already, he can write about anything else he wants, but he dedicates an entire chapter to describing why it's not and debunking why it's not a white genocide.
The aim of this video is to help you spot propaganda. What you will notice is that this creator makes a lot of claims without any proof or evidence. The creator speaks with so much conviction as though he is speaking truth, but all his claims have no basis. I want to introduce you to Winston, a South African living in America, and Winston has a problem. He hates South Africa.
Before you go to bed, make sure you lock your gate. Arm the alarm. Lock your doors. And most importantly, lock the security gate between the living room and your bedroom. That's what saved the life of this couple who was about to be murdered and horribly tortured and who knows what else in their own beds. This is the reality of South Africa. It's a mess. And you know what? South Africa's in the news because it looks like people are finally taking this very big problem that South Africa faces seriously. And of course, I'm talking about the problem of race-targeted violent attacks and ethnic cleansing.
Every opportunity he gets, he disparages the country that he comes from. He has nothing good to say about South Africa, and that's okay. I think it's important and necessary to criticize a country when they fail. And I would agree with Winston that South Africa has been failing in a lot of issues. High levels of crime, high levels of unemployment, corruption, gender-based violence, inequality, and a sluggish economy. All these issues are a concern for a lot of people. So yes, I agree. But where I disagree is the claim of race-targeted violent attacks and ethnic cleansing. The idea that Afrikaners are targeted or even being ethnic cleansed is ridiculous. Ethnic cleansing is defined as the organized, often violent attempt by a particular cultural or racial group to completely remove from a country or area all members of a different group. Kind of what Trump is trying to do with the Palestinians.
Now, this is going to be an interesting video to talk about because this is such a landmine of a topic and something that's very divisive. And the best way for me to start to talk about this topic is to show you something. What you're seeing here is a flag that I took around with me when I did my first road trip through America back in 2016. The signatures of people that I met along the way. And the kind words of welcome and encouragement and love that I received from all walks of life around America. This flag is proof that America works. This flag is proof that America is filled with people of compassion and love and understanding, good people, kind people, generous people. And that's something that I will never forget because the people here is what make this country great. I can't say the same for South Africa, however. South Africa sucks. It's a shithole, and I'm being completely serious here. South Africa is a nation divided into tribes, and a nation that has been circling the toilet bowl for a very long time. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to hold back. I have every right to criticize South Africa the way I do because I am a white South African.
The creator shows a flag of kind messages he received from people all over America welcoming him to their country. Now I can agree again with Winston. Having lived in Dallas for 8 years, I can say that I met a lot of good, kind, compassionate people. But I also met a lot of people that do not exhibit those attributes. Americans are not homogeneous. People are different. You will meet good people and bad people. You will meet generous people and stingy people. And it's like that in every country. But according to this creator, that's not the case for South Africa. He is entitled to his opinion, but it's not difficult to understand why he thinks less of South Africans.
So, let's see. Who are the Afrikaners? Who are these people that are supposedly being given a refugee opportunity in America? Well, the Afrikaans people are basically the descendants of Dutch settlers. Think of your Oregon Trail in America. Think of your pioneers with their ox wagons. It's exactly the same thing. Same idea. They also had ox wagons. They went through the African bush. They gave the middle finger to the British, just like you Americans did. And turns out they're incredibly good farmers because, they had to survive and figure out the land and all that along the way. And guess what? They became incredibly good farmers.
It is interesting how he paints this beautiful, peaceful picture of the Dutch pioneers tracking the African bushveld with their ox wagons who just became good farmers. He doesn't say how the land was taken, or how they began expanding settlements into the traditional grazing lands of the Khoikhoi, or how their diseases also decimated the Khoikhoi population, or how they massacred them, or how they forced the Khoikhoi to work for them. No mention of apartheid, the systematic and brutal oppression of black people in South Africa. None of that is mentioned. All he says is these pioneers who became great farmers. But I can understand why his memory is so hazy.
They are Afrikaans speaking. I'm not an Afrikaner. I do have Afrikaans people on my father's side of the family. I can speak Afrikaans because we had to learn it in school, but I'm not what I affectionately call a Dutchman. I am a Soti, or Soutpeel, as they call us, which means a salt dick. That's what they call British South Africans like myself.
Let me see. It looks like a duck. It dresses like a duck. It sounds like a duck. It was raised like a duck. But it is actually British without British citizenship. Makes sense.
The Afrikaans people, specifically farmers, the Boere, as they call it, Boer just means farmer. Have been targeted for murder, been targeted for horrendous crimes for decades now. And by every stretch of the definition of genocide, that is what they're going through and have been going through.
He makes the claim again that Afrikaners have been targeted for decades without providing any stats. And he says that what they are experiencing is the definition of a genocide. So let's look at the definition of a genocide. According to Article 2 of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, it states, in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial or religious group, such as killing members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now, people who spread white genocide propaganda will have a hard time arguing their case for genocide. Stats shows that on average there are less than 69 farm murders per year compared to the 27,000 murders in South Africa. That figure includes white farmers, and black farm workers, but white genocide propagandists will not give you these stats. And the Wall of Remembrance for the farm murders that he showed has been tracking farm murders since 1961. And as I stated, it affects farmers and farm workers of all colors.
It's not just exclusively farmers or white farmers or whatever. It's farmers of all races who are being killed as well as farm workers.
Even if you want to make a case for white people, not just farmers being murdered at higher rates, Genocide Watch based in Washington, D.C. states, what research that has been done shows that while white South Africans make up around 8% of the population, they account for less than 2% of murder victims. I will gladly concede if Winston or any individual shows data of this white genocide, but at this point all they're doing is spouting propaganda.
I mean, being a white South African, growing up in South Africa, I myself was targeted for crime. My family was targeted for crime. We had home invasions. My mother was molested while these guys broke in to try to kidnap her, and they put her in the trunk of a car and all this other stuff. I've made videos about this stuff in the past. I've been shot at. I've been attacked. I've had lots of bad things happen. My sister's been hijacked at gunpoint. Like every member of my family, every friend that I have who's white in South Africa, well, I should be fair and say black too, have experienced crime. But there is a big difference. Because although everybody in South Africa, and I mean everybody, is a target of crime, and I've mentioned this before in my videos, you get something called a tsotsi, and a tsotsi is a criminal, like a disgusting, vicious criminal. They will attack anyone, regardless of their race or background. Doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter who they are. They will rob you, rape you, murder you, torture you, no matter what. Okay, but there's one big difference. And the big difference is, you do not get politicians going up on stage or in parliament calling for the slaughter of white people, the slitting of their throats, the murdering of their pets, the killing of their children. You don't get that against any other group in South Africa.
It is interesting how this creator frames this part of the video as no other ethnic group is standing up on stage calling for their slaughter. Now, I personally hate this song because I don't see it as helpful. But you know what? Facts don't care about my feelings. Struggle songs have played a crucial role in the fight against apartheid in South Africa. These songs were more than just music. They were tools of resistance, unity, and hope for Black South Africans fighting against racial oppression. They were used to mobilize people for protests, strikes, and rallies. They energized the crowds during demonstrations, keeping morale high even in the face of police brutality. Since open resistance was often met with harsh crackdowns, struggle songs became a way to fight apartheid without using weapons. When Julius Malema was taken to court for singing the song, he said that, and I quote, "The chants should not be taken literally. They had been used during the apartheid era when policemen had abused people in the townships. They referred to the oppressive state in the context of struggle and African culture. Most importantly, it was sung during the apartheid regime because of the dispossession of land by colonial powers. But its intent now is to mobilize the youth to become part of the struggle of economic freedom." End quotes. Individuals who are quick to refer to the song as evidence for the calling of the slaughter of white people cannot show or prove that the song has direct impact on the killing of farmers. There is one case in 1999 where the song led to the killing of a white farmer, but other than that, there is no correlation. Also, let's talk about the comment cutting the throat of whiteness.
But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. It cannot.
And what does that mean, to cut the throat of whiteness? Whiteness within the South African context means the special privileges, advantages, rules, and social position linked with being white. He is not referring to a white person or white people, but the special privileges, advantages, and social position that must be dismantled. Malema himself said that the phrase symbolized the dismantling of white dominance in politics, economics, and land ownership in South Africa. Not a literal call to violence, but rather a radical push for economic transformation. I am no Malema fan. I will rejoice the day he is out of politics in South Africa, but misconstruing his words for your own political agenda is just low. I will not defend Andile Mkama's remarks because I think that they are just vile. I think there are different ways to motivate a crowd, but this is not one of them.
I have my entire life noticed that there are certain people, and it's not a small minority of people, but there are a lot of people that celebrate these vicious attacks against white South Africans because they believe that they deserve it. They believe that somehow white people in South Africa deserve to be murdered and raped and tortured and have all of their property that they've worked their entire lives for stolen and taken away simply because of some perceived thing in the past, whether it be apartheid or whether it be colonialism or whatever the case. Somehow they justified and celebrate these atrocities. And I'm not going to stand for it because having grown up in South Africa during the dismantling of apartheid, growing up being told to be tolerant and be compassionate and to accept and embrace this idea of a rainbow nation and see what a facade and what bullshit it really is, I'm not going to stand by when people celebrate the murder, the ethnic cleansing of a minority group of who I happen to be a part of. I'm not going to stand by while people unfairly and unjustly try to prevent these people who genuinely need refugee status from getting it. I'm going to support them. And so, again, I'm not a Dutchman, I'm not Afrikaans, but I support this refugee status thing. I think it's a step in the right direction. And I would be saying exactly the same for the Zulus, if they were being ethnically targeted by the Xhosas.
No, you wouldn't, sir. No, you wouldn't. Let me get this straight. You sit on your high horse, passionately advocating for your people, virtue signaling that if any minority group were facing ethnic cleansing, you would be right there fighting for them. Please show me one video that you made about the ethnic cleansing that the Palestinians are facing. Show me one tweet that you made calling out the textbook definition of ethnic cleansing that is happening to the Palestinians, to the people of Sudan, and to the people of Congo. Where is the same energy? Where is the outrage? You can't pick and choose when to be a champion for justice just because it's convenient. If you only advocate when it benefits your group, then let's be honest, it's not about human rights. It's about your whiteness, your agenda, and your selective morality. Either stand for all oppressed people or admit that your activism is just self-serving noise. At the end of the day, this whole white genocide narrative isn't about facts, it's about feelings. It's about a group of people who have benefited from an unfair system for generations, but can't handle the idea of losing their privilege. Instead of acknowledging history and engaging in real conversation about justice, they flip the script and play the victim. And let's be real, if white South Africans were actually being wiped out, we wouldn't need far-right politicians and shady lobby groups to convince us. The numbers would speak for themselves, but they don't, because it's not happening. This isn't about persecuting white people. This is about correcting a system designed to keep most South Africans poor, while a privileged few holds all the power. And if that feels like oppression to you, maybe the problem isn't the system changing, it is that you were never supposed to have all that power in the first place.